months for her to learn.
Okay, Yogi Papa. Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Marion County Planning and Zoning portion of our County Commission meeting today. If you will all please join me in rising for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And Madam Clerk, if we could please have roll call.
Chairman Stone.
Here.
Vice Chairman Moore.
Here.
Commissioner Bryant. Here. Commissioner Gold. Here. Commissioner Zalek.
Here.
Very good. Thank you. And starting us off this afternoon, get to my notes here. We're going to go into our planning and zoning, and do we have proof of publication, Ms. Clark?
I have a proof of publication of legal ad number A0009538859 entitled Notice of Intention to Consider Adoption of an Ordinance published in the Star Banner on June 4th, 2019.
Very good. Thank you so much. What I would like to start with is just a couple of housekeeping items. We appreciate everyone being with us this afternoon. I will ask if you have any sort of electronic device, if you could please set that to vibrate. And if you need to have a conversation with anyone in the auditorium, or if you need to have a conversation on that device, please step into the foyer. You'll still be able to hear the proceedings here in the auditorium, but it will save us from having to hear your conversation. Also, I'll just remind the audience that this is a public meeting, and any public outburst will not be accepted as part of this meeting. I know that many of you are here to speak, and I'm certainly going to make sure that everyone who wants to have an opportunity to address the board will have the opportunity to do so. So we may be here for a little bit, but everyone will get their turn. We're going to start today first by addressing our planning and zoning items, and I am going to ask our attorney to go through any of the specific details as we move through these proceedings. So, Mr. Mentor.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. So, ladies and gentlemen, the first 6 items that Mr. Martzoff, our Growth Services Director, will read off in a moment are on the consent agenda. That means that as of this moment, we have not received any comment in objection to any of these items. When Mr. Martzoff reads off these items, 14A1 through 14A6, if any of you are here and did not previously have an opportunity to either raise a question about any of these items or to state an objection to them, raise your hand when that particular item is called off by Mr. Martzoff, and we'll pull that out of the consent agenda item and give it individual attention. If nobody has any questions or concerns about the items on the consent agenda, then it will go to the board and they will pass all of those items with a single motion. If you're here as an applicant for an item on the consent agenda, once the board has approved your item, it has been approved and you don't have to stay here for the rest of the meeting. So after those items have been approved by the board, we have some DRC waiver requests. These relate to waivers of sidewalk fees, water connection fees, and a question about PUD amendments. Generally speaking, these are relatively straightforward administrative issues for the board to consider. And then finally, we get into the individual planning and zoning items for individual consideration. So we have 2 special use permit applications and a rezoning application, and then finally consideration of comprehensive plan amendments, or EAR amendments. So as to the special use permit items and the rezoning, all of those are what's considered to be a quasi-judicial hearing. That means the board is kind of sitting like a judge And so whenever you have the opportunity to come up and address the item that you're interested in, it's important for you to give the board factual testimony, and not just a statement like, I'm in favor of this or I'm against this. Because these meetings, when the board is acting like a judge, are not decided by a show of hands or by how many people in the audience are in favor or against a particular item. The board has to make its decision based on competent, substantial evidence. So one other mistake I think a lot of people make sometimes when they come in here is someone will get up here and say, well, I just found out about this last weekend and I wish I had had more notice. And they end up wasting half of their time that they're allotted to talk, complaining about whether they had notice or not. I would encourage you to not waste your time talking about that. Go ahead and get right to the point of whatever your interest is. Whether you think that this particular application would create noise or too much traffic in your neighborhood or would create stormwater problems or something like that. That's the kind of factual information that the board needs to hear from you. Obviously, if you're here to support the item, the board would be interested in any factual information about how this particular application would be an improvement to your neighborhood or whatever. Finally, when we get into the final item, 14C4, again, the EAR Comprehensive Plan amendments. For those amendments, the Board of County Commissioners is no longer sitting as a judge. They're putting on their legislative hat. And so what they're dealing with here is classic policy-making decisions on behalf of the best interest of the whole county, the future land use of the whole county. And so that's the mode they're in. So any concerns you have that relate to the board's policy-making are fair game for you to bring forward during that last part. So I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mentor. And to get us started with the consent items, I'll turn it to Mr. Martzoff.
All right, thank you. For the record, Sam Martzoff, Marion County Growth Services Director. The 6 items that are on consent, I'm going to read off in order, and if you have any questions about any, tell me at the end, and we'll get them pulled. First one is 14A1 190601 SU. It's Stuart H. and Cheryl Russ. It's a renewal of a special use permit. 14A2 is 190602 SU, Eaton's Beach Restoration Group. It's a special use permit in R1. A3 is 190604 SU, Ocala North LLC, General RV. It is a modification to a special use permit. 14A4 is Kindred 190607 SU, Kindred Spirit Sanctuary, Inc. It's a special use permit in A1. 14A5 is 190608Z, 4C Family Trust, LLC. It's a zoning change from R4 to RE. And finally, 14A6 is Susan Hamra. It's a zoning change from R2 to A1. Anybody wish to have any of those pulled?
So at this point in time, if you're here for any of those 6 items and you would like it to be addressed individually, we ask that you please let us know. Otherwise, the next action that will take place by the board will be to approve all of these on the consent item with one motion. So is there anyone here would like any conversation to address the board on any of those first 6 items that's just been called? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board.
So moved.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Gold to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Mr. Mortzoff. And before you go, anybody who is here for those first 6 items, those items have now been approved. You're welcome to stay for the afternoon with us. If not, your item has been approved and you're welcome to leave. Thank you.
All right,
Mr. Martzoff?
first item is 14B1. It's a DRC item. It's a request to uphold DRC's conditional approval regarding a waiver request on sidewalks and sidewalk fees for TT distributors on the west Highway 40. It's a request for a full waiver to the sidewalk requirements. The property is very irregular shaped, and I apologize there's not a picture of it in the presentation today. It is in the agenda, though. It's a triangular shaped piece of property that sits right in front of the Martell Recycling Center in that area, and it has over 800 feet of frontage actually on Highway 40, which has been 4-lane but does not include sidewalks. So the code requires that you either put in sidewalks or get fee in lieu of. And I recommend a waiver.
So do we have the applicant with us today? Very good. If you'll just give your name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Davis Dinkins, 2201 Southeast 30th Avenue, Suite 302. I'm the engineer. Can you all hear me? I'm the engineer, civil engineer for the project.
Push that up a little bit, please, and give us a little air conditioning as well. Thank you. Since I got the mic. Go ahead, Mr. Dinkins.
Thank you. So I'm here on behalf of the ownership today, and as mentioned, TT Distributors is a 17,000 square foot facility of new construction. They're a farm and tax supply shop, and they are looking forward to building the new location in this location, which is ideally suited to serve the farm population in the farms of Marion County. We're here on behalf of the owner to request a waiver of the sidewalk fee today in entirety because we believe, and I just want to say that we believe that the intent of the sidewalk requirement in the code within either a county-owned corridor or an area where pedestrian facility is expected is a good one, and that's reasonable. We also appreciate the fact that the code allows DRC to provide for a fee and payment of, instead of construction in areas where sidewalk's not feasible, but further that there are situations where maybe even in a non-urban location that's DOT-controlled corridor, or where it could create a hardship, or other situations where strict adherence to the code could create a hardship or an unequitable requirement for the development. Excuse me. So with that said, the property is a lot of record, as Mr. Marshoff said. It has some issues. The staff of the county has been very helpful in helping us resolve these issues during the process. We appreciate that. It's been a productive and smooth process. Thank you for that. But just to note a few of the issues that creates a little special environment here. This property includes a floodplain. It receives contributing stormwater from off-site sites, which necessitates the need for a larger retention area, less developable area, more construction costs. The access is directly from DOT-controlled corridor. The existing locations for apron and median openings are not changing. The ownership is currently in the process of finalizing a purchase to utilize an existing easement, purchase of an easement to utilize an existing median opening in an effort to reduce the westbound U-turn movement on State Road 40 after they're built. That's an additional expense. As you can see from the map, the property is in no way, shape, or form regular. It's a triangular pie-shaped piece of property. If I'm going too fast, I'm just trying to be brief because I know you have a long meeting. The depth of it varies, and it's got extensive frontage, so that in itself creates a unique configuration for the loading dock building locations. So that's an additional expense. So, and again, as I mentioned, in this circumstance, the property is managed by DOT along a managed DOT corridor. It was recently improved. That widening project did not program any sidewalk improvements or pedestrian improvements in this area. The closest pedestrian improvements are down at 60th and State Road 40, which is roughly 2 miles away. So any installation of a sidewalk in this location or fee in lieu of would have been independently or isolated. It would not connect to any larger sidewalk pedestrian system. So actually there's over 1,260 feet of frontage, and if the fee was calculated on that, it's roughly a $30,000, $350 fee. If it was calculated on 850 feet, I don't know what the county calculated it on at this point, that would go up. Traditionally, a square or more rectangular piece of property would be a lot less because there'd be less frontage. So again, I'm here on behalf of the owners. They expect and understand there's a cost of development. They're committed to expeditiously moving this project forward. With that being said, it's $1.5 million budget. A waiver of these fees would allow them to spend that money in a way that might better serve the project, serve the corridor, or the immediate adjacent areas, such as landscape or facade improvements, versus putting the monies into a fund that may or may not be spent elsewhere in the county. So. Again, thank you for staff for continuing to be helpful. Thank you for commission for considering this request. If you have any questions of me, I'm happy to answer them.
Let me bring it back to the board. Do we have any questions of the applicant?
I know that the owner would like to say something if there's none of me.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Dinkins.
Good afternoon. My name's Dana Barber. This is my wife, Deborah. We've been in business in Marion County for 34 years. We're a third generation family owned and operated business now, and now our children are in it, actually helping us run it. And we just wanted to thank you for considering this waiver. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What we're going to do now is we're going to open it up if there's anyone in the audience who has any question, and then we'll ask you maybe to step back up if there is any issues that need to be resolved as a result of that. So I'll now open it to the audience for public comment. If anyone has any concern. Nope.
DRC.
Well, I've already started. Anybody forward? I will close that. Thank you for the reminder. No public comment. Yes, I am. I'm trying to move us along. Board, I'll bring it back to us.
I'll move for approval to waive.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Bryant to waive the sidewalk fee. Any further discussion?
I do have a question.
Yes.
So what, is that just going to be our general policy, that if it's on a state road, we're just going to waive
This is
them?
miles away. It
Oh,
was
thank
like
you. Question. That's why we
Well,
have the
he's
fee.
just asking
I'm
if,
just asking so I know, because people ask these questions on a regular basis, you know, and sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. I mean, you know,
I
that's what you have the fee and waiver, so you can complete other sidewalks in other places.
But I think
Splitting it in
because
half
this
would
is
be
a
something.
state road, as,
So just on state roads, we're gonna,
right, I mean, and
Okay, well-
it's disappointing that DOT didn't go ahead and build those sidewalks when they four-laned Highway 40, because that is a pretty recent project, but, I mean, that would be,
DOT.
we gotta think about how often we're gonna have those types of things come before us, I would think, before we say this is gonna be a set-in-stone policy as
I
well.
was gonna say, I wouldn't want to commit to that. I think we need to look at it on an individual basis personally.
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
So all in favor?
I'm good.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you for your investment in the community. I wish you the best with your project.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Martzoff, that'll take us to 14B2. Mr. Kirkman.
Good afternoon, Jody Kirkman, Environmental Services Director. The next item was a request to uphold DRC's denial regarding waiver request for LDC, basically for water connection for the Bethel Church parcel number 369170000 under application number 22507. Basically, the section 6.142 C1 of the Land Development Code provides that all new development shall connect to an existing central water system if a system is available and has capacity for distribution lines in a distance equal to or less than 400 feet for the total number of equivalent residential capacity or ERCs within the project at build-out. In this case, this development is been calculated at 3.63 ERCs, of course, times the 400 linear feet, which would put them about 1,452 feet requirement, and the system actually does exist. It is the city of Bellevue's water system, but it is within 1,000 feet. So it does meet the LDC, and again, DRC denied the waiver request, and
that while the property is within the city of Bellevue service area, they are unable to serve this property until funding and plans allow them to do so.
Right.
and staff did follow up with the city. The city basically kind of followed up a little bit more on that letter, saying, of course, that they had no plans to extend their system at this time. That was kind of more, I think, what they were trying to say in the letter. So they do not have plans to extend it. If it was extended by a developer in this case, they said they do have capacity and would want to service them. So, as a clarification.
Right, so the difference.
Go ahead, yes.
The difference
Commissioner.
is the city's not willing to run a line, but if the developer runs the line, then they're willing to serve them,
Yes, sir.
and they have the capacity to do so.
Yes, sir.
But it's over 1,000 foot away?
Yes, sir.
That's expensive.
Yes, sir. It's right at 1,000 feet.
1,200.
Yeah.
1,200.
And how much is it per foot for them to do it?
We,
Remember off-
363, I think is, well,
Or actually, I can ask the applicant when they come up.
is the applicant with us? Very good. If you'll just give us your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Abel Garcia, 444 Water Road.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. Do you have a price on getting the line run?
Yes, the estimates that we've gotten for getting the line run over there are between $50,000 and $60,000. When we're a small congregation.
I'm sorry, I could not hear you.
Sorry. We're a small congregation. On Sundays, we gather a little more than 100 people, and that's once a week that happens. Even if we were to grow and get to the 242 people, which is what the planned building is for, that would be a once a week meeting, which is what those calculations are based on, the number of people that are there. The rest of the week, it's a small staff that would be on site, and so the effect on or the number of usage, the amount of usage for the water is far below. So what we calculated, and even when we began this process, which was 2 years ago, the calculations were different for the number of people at the time. If we were further away than I believe it was 950 feet from the connection, we weren't obligated to connect to the line. And then since then, we ran into some obstacles for the application with the stormwater and drainage. We had to change engineers in order to have an engineer that could calculate all of that. And that actually went through a couple of different applications to the DRC. And by the time we came back with this final application, the codes had changed in such a way that now, if we were within 1,452, as was mentioned earlier, 1,452 feet, now we would have to connect to the city of Bellevue, even though the letter from the city of Bellevue stated that they didn't feel that we needed to connect to their lines.
Thank you. Board, do you have any questions
Yep.
for the applicant?
So
Yes,
is your
Commissioner
property already zoned for the church?
It is. It's a multifamily residential, but within the zoning, it does allow for churches. I think it's R4 is the zoning, if I'm not mistaken.
The property is right there where 36th Avenue and 95th intersect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that? Because we have one same zoning out there in the shores. Pamela's got to tell us it's the same zoning.
Any other questions for Mr. Garcia?
I've got a question. So if we were to approve your waiver request, one of the conditions could be that if the city ever did run the lines, if that water ever became available, that we would approve it with the understanding that you would have to connect at that time.
And we would be okay with that.
Okay, water and, if they ran water and sewer.
Water and sewer, that's correct, if you were to run into that, correct. I believe the DRC had already approved for us to use an advanced septic system.
Yeah.
Which would remove nitrates from the sewage in order for it, or from the septic system, in order for it to not affect the springs water.
Very good. Great. Other questions? If not,
So are you guys ready to build?
We are. We've been.
Have you already hired a contractor, or are you in?
We have a contractor. We started this process 2 years ago, which is when we first applied to get the building permit, and there's been a lot of obstacles in the way. We've been trying to work with the DRC and the county in order to get proper approval before we begin. It's just we want to take every step to do things the right way.
I think they've had some changes along the way where they've had
Correct.
to keep going back to the drawing board and that.
We presented, and then they've told us, well, this is a problem, like the example that I gave about the stormwater. At first, we were going for a minor site plan waiver, and we were unable to do that. And then when we went to the major site plan waiver, we had to get a different engineer in order to deal with the stormwater. And every time we've come back, there's been changes on the DRC staff, so we've had to kind of start from square one with working with them. And then there's also been changes to the code itself, which means we were presenting based on when we had began, and then by the time we came back, things had changed, and so we had to go back to the drawing board. So we're just asking for you guys to help us out.
Very good. So board, I'm looking for a motion to either approve the applicant's waiver request with the conditions.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to approve it with the conditions if water and sewer lines are run in front of the property,
I'll
that
second.
will connect.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Gold, second by Commissioner Moore. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
Thank you very
All
much.
the best, Pastor Garcia.
Thank you very much. God bless you all.
God bless you also. Thank you.
All right, Madam Chair, 14B3 is the final DRC item. It is a request again to uphold DRC's recommendation of denial of a waiver request to resubmitting a master plan amendment regarding the newest location of a proposed Veterans Park and on top of the world. Let me get this. No. Yeah, I want my file. All right, so what was submitted to DRC was the requested drainage plan for this park. This is the approved master plan in 2006. It's showing parcel J here as single-family and duplex area. There's actually a park site designated here in this block. The park is like this, and it spans between what is Pine Run subdivision here and an earlier phase of Crescent Ridge 2 here. You'll see this residential phase here actually has covered over that existing park area. So what we look for in zoning, and we're the ones that pulled this, was changes to the master plan that might affect the intent and character. And it lists several things in the Land Development Code to give some guidance. Anything that modifies the intent and character, modifies the minimum size and general location of the common open space, including buffers and other things. So when we looked at this, the real concern on my part is the part that's down here at Pine Run that wasn't proposed to be anything but residential. The master plan actually shows us a modified, what they're calling a C1 buffer along here in 2006, and it was a double staggered hedgerow that would reach a height of 60 inches in 2 growing seasons. So this is what DRC saw. DRC upheld zoning's recommendation that they come back through with a master plan amendment to the board that would actually get public notice to these folks down here, as well as the folks that have existing residents up here to the north. And they need to have this open by November, so they need to move. And we were willing to try and get them to only be required to do a single sheet amendment to it that we could incorporate into the approved 06 master plan and incorporate into the major site plan, and any way to expedite it. But
Sam, what's the distance between the affected areas and the park that brings
is there a way I
concern?
could get an aerial up? I saw you had one earlier.
Oh, excuse me,
It's
Mr.
the width
Martzoff.
of the right-of-way there, probably 50 feet. And this is
Show it again, squiggle it.
probably 50 feet between this southern boundary and these houses here. And north of the property line would be a 10-foot wide buffer of double staggered hedgerow, was all that was required on the 06. And that was buffering to a residential, single-family, and duplex. This is where that park was shown on the master plan before. So we deal with this a lot, and it's their PUD. They do a wonderful job on top of the world does. And this particular park wasn't really just a passive park. It included pavilions, shuffleboard, large and small dog park, a basketball court, horseshoe pits, cornhole, a veterans memorial, 72-space community garden, and an archery range, along with several parking lots, playgrounds, and restrooms. So
And what would the buffering be?
buffering was a double staggered hedgerow, 10 feet wide. It would reach a height of 60 inches in 2 growing seasons, or 2 years, I believe it is.
Yeah, do you want to talk to Sam?
Well, I
or
just
should
want to
we-
ask Sam. Sam, just to me, it just appears they're moving the park over.
Right.
So, anyway, maybe I don't get why.
In the zoning business, we're hypersensitive. to
Yeah,
stuff.
I'm, that's why I'm
Because
figuring
we deal with
out.
the
You're
people
very
that got a new
sensitive.
neighbor.
I mean, they just moved the park and it's for veterans of all
Absolutely.
things. Anyway, it's just,
It's and I can agree to a certain extent. It's the fact that it's not internal anymore. It's up against that subdivision to the south.
yeah, you get that too.
And if they had time, I'm sure they'd be glad to help us through the master plan process and get it done correctly. They don't have time in this case, and I can understand it being an interpretation. And
Do you just have a different suggestion on the buffering?
we can certainly do that, yeah. I mean,
Maybe a wall.
it needs to be a lot wider.
wall?
A wall would be nice.
Yeah, Commissioner Bryant likes walls.
Yeah.
Decorative walls.
There's actually a retention area scheduled down here, if you saw the latest plan that Mr. Tillman proposed after DRC saw it actually had a ring of residential lots that went around it, which I think would substantially help. Would certainly ease my mind.
Let's, if we could have the applicant come forward. Looks as if Mr. Tillman's going to be representing.
David Tillman, Tillman Associates Engineering, 1720 Southeast 16th Avenue, Building 100, Ocala, Florida. I'm one of those engineers that can do stormwater, unlike the ones he was talking about earlier.
It's not what Angel says.
Angel's talking about utilities.
I'm sorry, Tracy. Apologize.
He's getting so efficient at doing it.
All right, so what I've passed out to you is kind of 2 comparative site plans. So, as you know, in all the PUDs that we do, residential PUDs, that y'all have an open space requirement, which y'all typically ask us to apply amenities to. And so this was slated on the master plan as a residential area. And, this is very unusual for me because today I'm showing up with 2 site plans and I'm asking to do the one that has less on it. So if you look at the exhibit showing the comparison, what I did is I put a cul-de-sac on there with residential lots around it. And then I made the park part of the community. And this is something that would be allowed based on my master plan. But when I do the park without it, it's being interpreted as something that isn't allowed because it's a different type use. But I still state that this is still part of my overall PUD in my residential community and is a use that is allowed within that PUD and fits the master plan. At least at the worst case scenario, you can look at it and say it's not an allowable use, but we're putting something in here that you can waive doing the master plan is something that you can waive, modifying it. So I certainly think that this is worth waiving. It's not, the timing, November 11th is when we're trying to open up. Staff has been very helpful in helping us get started, right away on all of our non-vertical construction. So we are out there working on grading. They did give us approval to do that, but we can't move forward with any of the vertical construction. If we have to go through the 3-month process, it puts us in a delay that's going to hold this project up from getting opened on Veterans Day. I don't think this is an obtrusive use. If you look at the way we designed it, the whole thing is separated considerably away from the neighborhood that's to the south. And so the only part that you have is the archery pavilion. It's because you need the distance. And I mean, the noise, for rifle range, I might understand why we'd have a problem putting them really close to the neighbors to the south. But it's an archery range. All the noise is happening up here at the other end, farther away from all the neighbors to the south. We're not asking to change the buffer that was planned with the master plan. We're going to put that in just as it was previously stated. And I see this as a very easy thing to waive and allow us to move forward without having to go through the master plan process. This is a master plan that contains 1,000 residential units. We're going to have to update this master plan eventually because we are going to eventually, I'm sure, make some planning changes that are going to very much warrant it. And so we can update this portion of it at that time also. It's just, I understand the point of a master plan is to go through the public process. But I'm here going through the public process today, so I hope that y'all will find it approvable to move this forward with the waiver. If y'all have got any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them.
Any questions for the applicant? Think we're good.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Mentor, yes or no on the
Waiver?
Yeah. I mean, I'm just curious. I mean, is David right? Does he have the under the auspice of the plan and the PUD?
I think the board has the discretion to waive it.
Yeah.
Motion to approve the request.
Second. I've got a motion by Commissioner Gold to approve the waiver, second by Commissioner Bryant. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously.
Madam Chair, 14C1 has requested a continuance. That's 190603 SU until July 16th, 2019, 2 p.m.
That was 14C1. Is that the email from Ms. Stinkins?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the request to continue the special use permit for the RV.
Okay, very good. So, can I get a motion to continue?
So moved.
I've got a motion by Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Gold, to continue this until July 2019. Any further discussion? Actually, though, before we take a vote, do I need to maybe offer up any public comment if there is someone here who was here to talk about this particular item? And this is, oh, somebody help me with the name.
Yogi Baba Investment LLC?
If anyone was here to talk about the Yogi Baba Investment LLC, I ask you if you'd like to come forward and give any public comment. This will be continued till our July meeting. Seeing no one in the audience, I'll take the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. Very good. Thank you. And now that will take us to 14C2.
Ken Wayrocker Grove Services. The case is 190605 SU. It's a request for park 1 commercial vehicle, 1 trailer in R4. The property is R4, 0.68 acres in, is it Silver City subdivision with the rural land use. Here's a picture of the concept plan. The applicant has been parking here for about 2 years and is an over-the-road truck driver and home 7 to 10 days every 3 to 4 months. And there's been no complaints until there was a code case that was self-generated on this. And
And then we did receive 2 letters of opposition once the mailings went out. And staff is recommending approval due to the low intensity and that the load is empty every time it comes in. And the staff did not see any damage to the roads out there when we were out there. And it was the day after she left to head out on the road. And here are the conditions staff's provided.
Do we have any questions for Ken before we offer?
I have one.
Yes.
So you stated that the truck comes back in unloaded?
Correct.
And but it's a refrigerated trailer,
No.
so does it, no?
No, so there were 2 trailers. One was refrigerated, and once the applicant was told that she could not park there, she moved the refrigerator trailer permanently.
Okay.
And,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, sir. We'll open it up for public comment. Well, is the applicant with us first?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Chairman Stone and Commission members. My name's Phil Cabler. I'm the attorney for Ms. LaDuke, 2700 Northwest 43rd Street, Suite C, Gainesville. She's not here because, as stated, she's on the road right now, which, as your staff noted, is a material provision with regard to their approving this in the first place. I don't think I need to go in great detail, and I won't, because your staff has already indicated the use, the light frequency, the lack of damage, no complaints. She's been doing this for several years, only when it came up recently, and then she agreed with code enforcement. So there is no refrigerated truck. She's not on the land very much. It's not causing particular damage, and the staff recommended at zoning and then here approval of the special use permit with conditions, and there are 10 conditions that you saw. It's not permanent. It doesn't run with the land. Specific trucks are indicated on there. So with that, are there any questions you all have of me at this time?
Board, do we have any questions? Not at this time. We'll give it, if you'll stay
Yes, ma'am.
close by.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll open this to the audience. If there's anyone here to address the board about this issue, I invite you to come forward now. This is on 14C2, Gwen Marie LaDuke, special use permit request. Doesn't look like there's anyone here to address the board, so I'll bring it back to the board.
Second.
Got a motion by Commissioner Moore, second by Commissioner Zalek. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Kenneth Odom, Growth Services. This is 190610Z, Ocala RX Investments. Mr. Bhavesh Kumar Patel is the proprietor of this business. He is requesting to change zoning on one parcel from B1 neighborhood business to B2 community business. The parcel is an old Harbor Community Bank located right across the street from On Top of the World. He is looking to convert the property into a pharmacy at that location. It is currently B1. It's the only B1 parcel that's located on the commercial strips on both sides of State Road 200. There have been no letters in opposition. However, there were some residents that live in the medium density residential to the south that did speak in opposition. However, that was resolved. They actually came and met with staff after that meeting as well, so we believe all their concerns have been resolved. Also, this is a fairly simple rezoning request. Like I said, it's just a conversion of an existing building. Everything else around it is B2, and basic use of the building is just like any other pharmacy. Any kind of pharmacological sales, medical devices, as well as a small non-sterile room for compounding some oils, salves, ointments, and that thing. There's pictures of buildings. You also will have a small drive-through area in the back of the building that they plan to utilize. But they are just about ready to start doing the remodeling on the interior of the building.
Thank you. Any questions of Mr. Odom? Do we have the applicant with us today?
Yes, ma'am, we do.
Very good.
Thank you, Chair and the Commissioner. My name is Bhavesh Kumar Patel, address 8290 Southwest Highway 200, Ocala, Florida. So what we have intent to use, I have the pharmacy on the 200 right next to Big Lot, and we're trying to move that pharmacy from that location to particular juice location to utilize a drive-through for our customers.
Very good. Very good. Do we have any questions of Mr. Patel? Thank you, Mr. Patel.
Okay.
I'll bring it back to the board. I'm sorry. Thank you. Do we have anyone in the audience who would like to address the board on this issue? If so, I invite you to come forward. Seeing none.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
We've got approval by, motion to approve by Commissioner Zalek, second by Commissioner Moore. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. All the best in your relocation, Mr. Patel. Okay. We are now going into our request for approval for an ordinance to adopt the 2018 Marion County Comprehensive Plan Evaluation and Appraisal Report based on our large-scale amendments. And welcome, Ms. Dinkins.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kim Dinkins, Growth Services. I believe our clerk has our proof of I believe our clerk has proof of publication.
I have proof of publication of display added entitled Notice of Change of Land Use Marion County Comprehensive Plan and Ordinance of the Board of County Commissioners of Marion County, Florida, adopting the 2018 Evaluation and Appraisal Report based amendments to the Marion County Comprehensive Plan pursuant to Chapter 163 Florida statutes, providing for findings, providing for appeals, providing for servability, providing for repeal, and providing for an effective date. Published in the Star Banner newspaper on June 7, 2019.
Very good. Thank you.
And to further give some context of what has transpired, we began this project in 2018 as mandated by the state of Florida, and we've held 3 public meetings, 2 public hearings, and then this is our adoption hearing. We are recommending approval of the ear-based amendments as you see before you, with the exception of 2 what we would consider minor changes that are in the packet in front of you labeled 14C4 changes to the ear-based comprehensive plan amendment since BCC agenda publication. They deal with policy 7.4.8, adding or other such level as defined in the LDC to the new policy requiring minimum nitrogen reductions for septic tanks within the priority springs protection areas, and then a change to the title of map 3.2 in the transportation element to reflect that these are the existing numbers of lanes. Again, staff is recommending adoption of these amendments, but there is one substantial change that we are recommending based on DEO comments that were provided to us on March 29th. DEO did only provide comments, no objections, but they were concerned about our transportation policy for the farmland preservation area. Essentially, they were concerned that the policy as proposed discouraged intergovernmental coordination. It would potentially not be effective. It was challenged due to a lack of data, and then the method by which state transportation facilities are funded should not be of concern to the economic or planning of Marion County. So they requested that we revise the proposed policy to express the county's vision for the farmland preservation area while providing for meaningful coordination with DOT. So the language that you see in policy 3.3.1 was developed with coordination with DOT. They have accepted that language, but we also believe that it meets the intent of the policy as it was proposed for staff to develop. So I believe that you all have received a comment from the public in written form, and that Mr. Minter may have some thoughts on this policy as it stands. Otherwise, we are ready for questions.
Before we go further, is there any questions of Ms. Dinkins by the board?
Yes, the one part where it says avoid negative impacts. Because I know the intent, but like this morning we got into where we found out there was more than one way to determine if it's something similar or in lieu of. We found out words, even though we know what we intend, don't always get that same intention. Because that's one that I've been grappling with, if there's a better way to say that. And
Again,
maybe when we hear from the public, somebody will have a better way to say that.
I think we'll probably have some conversation around that as we go forward. Is that fine with you, Commissioner Moore?
Yeah, it's fine, but that's the area where I'm having trouble with.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, comments directed towards Ms. Dinkins at the moment? If not, we have received some written comments, and I will just call these out. Madam Clerk, I believe you've already been provided these, and that would be by Ms. Judy Greenberg, Monica Schneider, Randy Willis, as well as Charles Lee from the Audubon of Florida. I believe Mr. Lee is here, but he did send a letter as well. Additionally, we have two that requested letters read into the public record, and Mr. Mortsoff is going to read the two letters that we also received to be read into public comment.
Yes, ma'am. Lonnie Powell from the Florida Thoroughbred Owners Association writes to the Commission, on behalf of the Florida Thoroughbred Breeders and Owners Association, I would encourage the Board of County Commissioners to approve the proposed ordinance to adopt the 2018 Marion County Comprehensive Plan Evaluation and Appraisal Report based large-scale amendments. The equine industry broadly and the thoroughbred industry specifically are fundamental drivers of the Marion County economy. Our local equine industry and horse-centric way of life are also part of what makes our community truly unique. While the proposed plan is not perfect and will offer room for future enhancement, the county leadership and staff has done an excellent while challenging job of gathering public input and seeking to protect our invaluable farmland preservation area while allowing for reasonable future growth. In fact, the county appears to have strengthened the protection in the farmland preservation area while also ensuring that the county and other industry has a seat at the table and is consulted by the state in key future infrastructure development. With this balance and encouragement in mind, we are pleased to provide our support alongside the Chamber and Economic Partnership and others such as Florida Farms Forever for passage of this plan. I respectfully request that this letter of support be read into record. The next letter is by Mayor Burns, City of Dunellen. On behalf of the City of Dunellen, I'd like to provide you with the language in draft ordinance 2019-03 to amend the transportation element of the city's comprehensive plan. This will be considered during a public hearing before the city's planning and commission tonight at 5:30. Policy 3.3 of their plan: monitor and provide city comments to appropriate agencies concerning transportation plans for limited access facilities in Dunellen area to ensure that the related impacts on the city transportation system are minimal and do not adversely impact the character and natural resources of the city, and that any identified impacts are planned for or mitigated by the appropriate agency. And the follow-up parcel 3.4 is any new limited access facilities, toll roads, and/or turnpikes in the conservation, agricultural, and recreational future land use classifications are not consistent with the intent of this plan. These facilities would infringe on the protection of the public health, safety, and welfare through preserving natural and man-made resources, protecting, maintaining, and restoring the aquifer, protecting special status species, maintaining open space and creation and recreation areas, and discouraging sprawl. Any new limited access facility, toll road, or turnpike in these areas would not serve a valid public purpose. Facilities in these areas would negatively impact economic viability and growth of Marion County, including City of Dunellen. Any new transportation facility in these classifications must be consistent with the principles of context-sensitive design and avoid any negative impacts to significant farmlands and environmental areas. He finishes with the City Council would like to thank the Commission in advance for appreciating that the very same fundamental necessity proposed in Dunellen's plan is vital throughout Marion County in the farmland preservation area and to the rural areas south and west of Marion County boundary to provide protection against expressways and toll roads when considering Marion County's EAR amendment. The Dunellen City Council fully supports and appreciates your efforts to protect Marion County's pristine natural resources, as is Marion County Commission. Dunellen City Council is equally committed to be a good neighbor. And it's signed Dale Burns, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mortsoff. Mr. Mentor, because we've already received some feedback from the Department of Opportunity as well as the Department of Transportation with very similar wording, should we also request from them the same that was provided, those comments to us? It could be challenged for lack of data, as well as it's no concern of theirs on how DOT would provide funding? Or do we leave that for them? I mean, we're just reading this into the record.
Right, yeah.
Okay, they'll get their own set of comments.
Right, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. At this point in time, we do have quite a few people who are scheduled to speak. So we will start the public comment at this time. And I will call your name, and as you come forward, I'll ask, I'll call two at a time, basically, so we can keep it going from both sides of the room. And when I call your name, once you get to the podium, if you'll please give your name again, because I'm very likely to mispronounce it, as well as your address. You'll see a set of lights come on in front of you, and as those lights change colors from yellow to red, I'll ask that you please end your comments at that time. We'll get started with Kevin Sheely and Ken Osley. Is Mr. Osley with us? Maybe stepped away. Sarah from Horse Farms Forever. Very good. Sarah, you'll have to give me your last name when you get here. God bless you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Sheely.
Kevin Sheely, Ocala, Marion County Chamber and Economic Partnership, 310 Southeast 3rd Street, Ocala. Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity today to speak to this. The CEP Executive Committee has had the opportunity to review the proposed language, and they are supportive of the proposed language. And we think the most important thing is to ensure that the county has a seat at the table for any discussions moving forward. Our one concern, and the thing that we would ask you to consider, is, as Commissioner Moore has referenced, to change the word avoid to something perhaps to minimize or to mitigate, but to move away from the word avoid. We think that provides some concern and would encourage the board to look at another word in that case. However, we are very supportive and appreciate all the work that the commission and staff have done to get us to this point.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Sheely. And behind Sarah, we'll have Kristen Rubin.
Hello, everybody. My name is Sarah Fennessy, and I am with Horse Farms Forever, P.O. Box 5279, Ocala, Florida. Chairman Stone, commissioners, and staff, I am here today to show our support for the language in the comprehensive plan moving forward. Some of our members with Horse Farms Forever include Chester Weber with Live Oak International, Charlotte Weber with Live Oak Stud, the World Equestrian Center, OBS, Jessica Steinbrenner's Keensman Farm, Demerick Thoroughbred Sales, and the O'Farrell family's Ocala Stud. Again, I am here today to show our full support for the county's language in the comprehensive plan moving forward. Though we recognize the language may not be that of total perfection, it does represent a significant step in the right direction. We look forward to continuing working with the county to further our mission of ensuring that the character and culture of Ocala and Marion County is protected for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fennessy.
Thank you.
And did we have Ms. Rubin? What, Ms. Rubin? And behind Ms. Rubin will be Jim Tatum.
Hi, my name is Kristen Rubin. My address is 26280 Northwest 206 Place, High Springs, Florida. And I am here to represent my concerns for the language and also for the impact that these highways could put on the state of Florida. I have two recent headlines I'd like to give you a little bit of information from. The Florida Phoenix, March 21st, 2019, legislature's planned road project could benefit Florida's richest man, Thomas Petterfee. He bought 561,000 acres in Lafayette, Dixie, and Taylor counties of the size of Rhode Island. And those counties will now, that rural land would become commercial and residential. Petterfee also donated $310,000 to DeSantis' election. What does that say? From Biz Now, April 17th, 2019, Florida poised to add 3 new highways transforming the state, bringing more sprawl, forever destroying wildlife, habitat, and waters. We do not need more highways. We do need to utilize and build upon what we have, add lanes, raise bridges that flood, create mass transportation, and more solar. This will bring economy to our area. And it will also improve the infrastructure without ruining the environment, while protecting our environment and waters. Yes, I'm from South Florida. Yes, I bought an existing home, and yes, I volunteer over 100 hours every year to the community. No, I do not want our world to become like South Florida. Please do not approve this adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rubin, and thank you for your volunteerism with our community. Behind Mr. Tatum, we have Doug Shearer.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is Jim Tatum. I live at 914 Southwest Riverland Court, Fort White, Florida. And regarding the language for the comprehensive plan, I oppose any new roads in the farmland preservation area and throughout the county, and as far as that goes, throughout Florida. I'm here to request that you do not allow any new roads to traverse your county. These roads are not necessary. Previous studies have determined that the option preferred by the people was to widen the corridors of current roads, raise key bridges, such as where I-75 crosses the Santa Fe River. Florida already has more toll roads than any other state in the nation, over 700 miles. Rural areas will not benefit from new roads. New highway corridors bring gas stations, motels, fast food chains, and strip malls. These generate additional traffic where the new roads are supposed to alleviate. We cannot afford, do we need new massive development. Florida's springs and rivers are imperiled and dying, as proven by greatly reduced flows and huge increases in nitrate pollution. Water management districts are failing to protect our water resources, and their own projections for the next few years show that we will not have enough water for our current needs, let alone the development that these roads would bring. The push for new toll roads in Florida did not come from the Florida Department of Transportation, nor from the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. It was recently opposed by many in Central Florida and thus abandoned. It was resurrected by Bill Galvano and cronies to help lobbyists for the Florida Chamber of Commerce, the Florida Trucking Association, and the Asphalt Contractors Association of Florida. Galvano wants to spend $300 million to duplicate a study that was done 3 years ago. His bill was opposed by 90 different groups in Florida, and for good reason. If built, these roads would have an irreparable negative impact on Florida, which could never be reversed. Please do not allow this to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tatum. Behind Mr. Shearer, we'll have Annette Stutzman.
Douglas Shearer, 2301 Southeast 85th Street, Ocala, Florida, 34480. I wish the language could stay the way it was, but I know the state objected if there was any way to make it any stronger, but I just hope the commissioners will stand up and enforce and try and do their best to preserve this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Scheer. Behind Ms. Stutzman, we'll have Della Williams.
Good afternoon. Annette Stutzman, 204 Southwest 192nd Court, Dunellen, also Romeo. Just real quick, I'm a little perplexed how we came back to this discussion when I thought we had this all situated in June of 2018. What I'd like to say, on June 5th, 2018, the Commission adopted Resolution number 2018-R-194 and sent it to then Governor Scott. I am asking you today to please strengthen our comp plan as it's being presented, as I've read, and redraft Resolution number 2018-R-194 to now include all the proposed roads and submit it to Governor DeSantis. I feel we need to keep the message of our comp plan strong and clear. We want to keep Marion County, Marion County. Our rural areas rule, our farms intact, and our agriculture land untouched. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stutzman. And behind Della Williams, we'll have Bridget Smith.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Della Williams, and I reside at 4980 Northwest 34th Place in Ocala. I don't belong to any big organization pushing this road or denying it. I am one of the little people. I'm a thoroughbred owner, assistant trainer and groom in a small independent sport horse farm. I first came down to your state in the early 2000s with a thoroughbred competing in eventing and fell in love with this area. The kindness of the people, the rural landscape. I come from Atlanta, Georgia, and you could take a lesson from us in what not to do to your rural land. We had beautiful farms up there. Polo was very active. The hunter-jumper scene was magnificent, and the developers swooped in. And they paved paradise and put up parking lots and subdivisions and strip malls, and they can no longer build out, and now they're building up. They've ruined an entire region up there, and it would break my heart to see you destroy your region here for cronyism and highways and toll roads. There's enough toll roads. There are enough highways. You can improve on what you have without spending tons more money, ruining what precious water you've got left, and a thriving industry, which when I look at the county seal here, what is the first thing that jumps out at me? 2 horses. This area provides quite a substantial percentage of revenue to the state. Let's not destroy it.
Thank you, Ms. Williams. Behind, ladies and gentlemen, that's just going to prolong our day. I'm going to ask you please to avoid any interruption. Behind Ms. Smith, we have Tim Holkes. If I'm wrong, please correct me when you get here. Or it may be Holcamp. Ms. Smith.
Bridget Smith, 4275 Southwest 85th Ave. I just wanted to bring up two points before I get into my speech. Florida Statute 338.223, it gives local governments the power to control this in their comp plan. That statute was not stricken through in the bill 7068 from Tallahassee. So this comp plan still has the power to not have those toll roads in that language through areas. So, but I was undecided what to say today until speaking to my 21-year-old daughter who graduated from Westport High. Living in her house, she had to live and breathe politics. She mentioned every one of you campaign on doing whatever necessary to keep our youth here after graduation. She's an independent business owner, horse trainer, and cattle breeder at age 21. She's now concerned with her future as she lives in the area of Southwest Marion County. I wondered myself why you wrote a resolution against the toll roads coming through Marion County, and now to be here today where we have potentially completely flipped on the original strong language that would help protect the Southwest rural lands. The new proposed language only leaves the door open for toll roads, more gas stations, and dollar stores. So I realized why the CEP has enlisted Florida Horse Farms Forever, who stands to benefit from the very weak language in our comp plan. The CEP public-private partnership is special dealings between government and certain business corporations who receive not only tax breaks, taxpayer-funded projects, and even eminent domain ability through local government. It's a single subsidized agency of the government chamber who must then cater to those very government-funded source interests. The bigger picture here is the qualified opportunity fund zones in the area of the WEC, Golden Ocala, and now my daughter, which is no way a low-income distressed area for which the original opportunity zones were created in the tax plan. We require the language reflected from the resolution that each one of you signed to include that the county finds that any new expressway within farmland preservation area that negatively impacts vital farmlands be inconsistent with our plan. So again, I thank you very much for your time, and statute 338.223 gives you the power.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And seeing that Mr. Holcamp has not come forward, Jimmy Cartel and Charles Lee.
Good afternoon, Jimmy Carroll, 10971 Southwest 85th Terrace, Ocala. I'm here just to give a little point of information that in April, the Department of Environmental Protection released its draft report on the total daily maximum loadings of nitrates and nitrates into the 3 springs in the Withlacoochee Basin. And in that report, they indicate that all 3 springs, that the loadings are, percentage of loadings are significantly higher than the 0.35 required for all springs in Florida. It is expected that a BMAP will be adopted at some point to include those springs under that those requirements. And that could, and in you looking at the analysis, the contributory area for those nitrates and nitrites is southwest Marion County. That is where the flow of the upper aquifer flows through the county to the southwest, and that's where the contribution is coming from. So as you move forward, you could expect that when we look at OSTDS requirements and so forth, you might want to look at starting maybe to implement what those requirements may mean for the OSTDs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. And behind Mr. Lee, we have Mary Lee Gibson.
Charles Lee, Director of Advocacy of Audubon, Florida. Madam Chairman, members of the Commission, do you recall what the Commission said with clarity in the resolution that you sent to the Department of Transportation and Governor Scott just about 1 year ago? Do you recall a few weeks after that, you sent them a second letter after discussion here at the Commission at a subsequent Commission meeting? And in that subsequent letter, you asked Governor Scott and the Department of Transportation not even to continue a study of a new turnpike through the farmland preservation area in Marion County. You asked them, don't have the study here because it's causing disruption to people's lives and businesses. Their real estate transactions. People aren't buying and selling because of the pendency of this study that is having an impact just by virtue of a study on the farmland preservation area. Those were your words about a year ago. Now you're adopting a comprehensive plan amendment. And I simply ask you, why would you want the words you put in your comprehensive plan to be even less clear than the words you sent to the governor and the words you sent to DOT a year ago? We would suggest you opt for clarity, not ambiguity. We would suggest you opt for the word avoid, not something weaker like mitigate or minimize. We would suggest that you tell the Department of Transportation and the governor in your comprehensive plan exactly what you transmitted to DEO earlier this year, which DEO, as your staff has told you, did not object to.
Mr. Lee, and your letter was full of a lot of information, and that will be on record as well.
Okay.
Thank you for your comments.
And
Yes, Commissioner Moore?
Mr. Lee, I'd just like to, because, you know, I've mentioned about the word avoid, because this morning, I don't know if you were here this morning, I think. Were you here for the part where
I heard that
similar?
lengthy discussion.
Yeah, where words that I thought I knew exactly what they meant, found out once we had an attorney get a hold of them, they didn't mean what I thought they meant. Anyway, that's where, like, you and I understand what the void means in the intent. Do you have some better wording, or I'm just trying to find out, because I don't want what we had this morning, this evening. You know.
He asked for a void.
Yeah, he asked for a void, but I know. I'm just saying, is there something better, or you think that suffices? I just want to make sure we're doing what's right.
I think that your best choice is to go with the language you transmitted. Your second best choice would be to go with something that would say clearly avoid these roads in the farmland preservation area. Okay. I understand that there's a set of additional alternatives. I believe that some of your staff or the county attorney has been working on. There are 4 alternatives, A, B, C, and D, that express different possibilities of dealing with this language. And if that is correct, then there are some good words in a couple of those alternatives. There are a couple of those alternatives that are very weak. There are a couple of them that would be consistent with the resolution that you passed last year. The ones that would be consistent are numbers C and number A in what I saw this morning as a document that I believe came from the county attorney's office.
Thank you, Mr.
And if you were to recast this language, then I think that out of those, if you hear those from the county attorney, I think the one with regard to the farmland preservation area that says that you're recommending that these roads be avoided unless the Department of Transportation can demonstrate that there's no feasible corridor alignment outside of the protection area, that would be good. It would be consistent with the new legislation. If you were to recommend that, that would send them a clear message. I think the other...
Mr. Lee, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If we could please have Ms. Gibson and Mr. Marwick, Guy Marwick.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm actually from Fort White, Florida. I've been here a number of times in the past several years. And we share one thing particularly in common, and that's the Floridan Aquifer. And that aquifer provides our freshwater springs in the Santa Fe River Basin, which is where I come from, the same water as you and me and our drinking water resource. So I'm here today primarily because as these highways and roadways become expanded, my neighborhoods in North Florida also become impacted. I also live in a rural area, just like you, and I feel strongly that highways are not going to be simply a limited access or have the ability, rather, to require this limited access regarding your ordinance. They're going to be building out. There's no way that they're going to have a highway and not eventually build out further. And then also, I am aware that Dunallen is going through this process this evening. Based on some of the information that was just expressed with Mr. Charles Lee, maybe you should table this. I hate to prolong things. I think that, you know, it's always important to move forward and do so with intent and with clarity. So maybe there's an option for that, because it doesn't sound like you have everything at your disposal right now. I think the language that you had in the previous submission that you sent to DEO, I mean Department of DEO, is something that you probably need to readdress, and I know you've already addressed it a little bit. So protect and enhance. that's the key words that I'm looking at regarding your ordinance in terms of the springs. So appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gibson. And behind Mr. Marwick, we'll have Iris Stern.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Guy Marwick, 12950 Northeast 1st Street Road, Silver Springs, Florida. Something in listening to many of these people, it strikes me, and I don't have a written speech in mind, but I certainly think the strongest language possible to protect us in our county from these toll roads that have been proposed. The next election could change it. We had one strong senator who pushed them through. Who knows what the next election or the next governor might support. The Cross Florida Barge Canal was an example of a boondoggle, and I think these roads are pretty much a boondoggle. So you are the elected people that we have. We don't get to elect DOT or DOE. We don't really give a damn about what they say. We want home rule, and we have to count on you folks to provide it for us. And I really think that this is an issue that will tear our county apart and destroy our agricultural base and our horse farms, will damage us in numerous ways. So the word avoid is probably the weakest word. I'd like to put absolutely no way in someplace that this will happen. So we do call on you to pretty much respect what I think most of the people in this room support. No toll roads. I also wanted to mention, seems like a few years ago when they were talking about toll roads, it was proposed by Tallahassee, the supreme omnipotent Tallahassee, that maybe they would have toll roads that would be built and funded by maybe Chinese. Do you remember that? They talked about other countries as actually, as it was just thrown out there. I don't know where it went, but that could happen. Wouldn't we love to have something like that dictating what happens to Marion County? It's really up to you. Make it strong and make it last. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marwick. And behind Ms. Etzler, we'll have, behind Mr. Stern, we'll have Judy Etzler. Mr. Stern.
Thank you, Commissioners, for allowing me to speak. I'm Ira Stern, and I'm sure you know my wife, Gail. We live on 7000 Northwest Highway 225A here in Ocala. We've been here since 2000. What's going on here reminded me of a little story of way back when I was playing high school football last century. And I remember that I was standing next to the coach for some reason or other, and a guy on the other team throws a ball to a defensive back. It was the receiver ran the wrong play, and the defensive back, it just went right through his hands. And I said to him, "Coach, what happened?" He said he was afraid of success. Us five guys up here, you five guys up here, can't be afraid of success. We made a determination between 2002, 2004, with the help of the county commission, with the state, as well as Tom Pelham, who was the director of the DCA, to set up a farmland preservation program to be able to protect this jewel in North Florida. Protect is a very important word. I think that so many people come here because of what we stated before, that if you preserve it, they will come. You don't need to build roads everywhere, because you cannot build yourself out of congestion, and we all know that. But I think the best terminology here, we're looking for terms for the comp plan, is go around. We want, most people here want to keep this place the way it is. This is why they came, and we need to wear that success. We need to beat our chests. This is who we are. Let everybody else go around us. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Stern. And behind Ms. Etzler, we'll have Whitey Markle.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I just printed out what I'm going to read. I have a copy for each of you.
Thank you, Ms. Etzler, and we'll make sure our clerk gets a copy of that as well. Okay, go ahead then. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the bigger font.
I needed glasses.
I was going to say, I was about ready to throw these on.
I'm glad I did it then. My name is Judy Etzler, and my address is 5251 Northwest 219th Street Road. It's unincorporated Marion County. It's up near the border between Alachua and here. And I just want to preface by saying I prefer the transmitted language of the 2018 ordinance for our Marion County comp plan. The first thing I want to talk about is high-speed limited access toll roads. So what are we talking about? A road that you pay, and I'm still concerned about this for Marion County. It's a road that you pay to use, which is a controlled access highway for high-speed traffic. The official definition from the State of Florida Department of Transportation is a controlled access highway, a highway or arterial road for high-speed access, which has many of or most characteristics of a limited access highway, freeway or motorway, including limited or no access to adjacent property, some degree of separation of opposing traffic flow, use of grade-separated interchanges, to some extent prohibition of some modes of transportation, such as bicycles or horses, and very few or no intersecting cross streets. So by definition, a toll road doesn't benefit the community that it travels through. The local businesses don't get increased revenue because the only businesses that travelers buy from are from privately owned concessions on the toll road. An increase in employment is only from being employed by the concessions. Toll roads also bisect communities and limit the ability of local residents to travel to and from their usual routes, point A to point B. I'll end with this quote from the Great Traffic Projection Swindle. Availability payments, the latest trend in privately financed infrastructure, guarantee a fat annual check from the state government to reimburse the private partner for their construction and maintenance cost. That amount is locked in even if the state collects no revenue at all. The financial industry truly has learned some lessons from the Indiana Toll Road, the South Bay Expressway, the Pocahontas Parkway, the Greenville Southern Connector, or numerous other road investments gone bad. They've learned not to bet on rising traffic volumes or on rising interest rates, and that the best way to privatize the profits is to stick the taxpayers with the bill as traffic volumes continue sinking. And there's a web address there. I thought I would have time to read the second part.
Well, I appreciate you providing this to us, and it will be in public record. Thank you, Ms. Etzler.
Thank you.
Behind Mr. Markle, we'll have Lucy Sullivan. Mr. Markle.
Whitey Markle, 1981 Northwest 186th Place, Citra, Marion County, Florida. I am the chairman of the Swanee St. John Sierra Club. 500 members here in Marion County, and I'm also on the board of directors for the Florida State Sierra Club. I'd like to say that Guy Marwick, Doug Shearer, Jim Carroll, Jim Tatum, and Mary Lee Gibson are also leaders in the Swanee St. John Sierra Club. So you have a big Sierra Club presence giving you input here today. A point of clarification, a statement was made earlier that the horse farms and the equine, I think he said, and thoroughbred are drivers, fundamental drivers of the economy. Well, we think the springs and the conservation areas are also fundamental drivers of your economy. And the statutes say that FDOT has to follow the Marion County Comprehensive Plan. So this is your chance to protect those springs and protect those conservation areas in your comprehensive plan. So it says that they should determine that those projects, the turnpikes and the expressways, are both economically feasible and environmentally feasible. So you need to insert in the language that says turnpikes and expressways are inconsistent with the county's plan-based farmland preservation areas and with the springs protection areas as well as the conservation areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Markle. Behind Lucy Sullivan, Monica Schneider.
Hello, Lucy Sullivan, 811 Southeast 50th Terrace. Thanks for letting me speak on this important topic. I'm not with the Chamber or Horse Farm. I'm here as a longtime resident and lover of Marion County. I remember well what it was like to live in the crowds and traffic in the concrete jungle of New York. Toll roads and highways would assure Marion County would morph into an urban city and bring with it all the problems that come with urban living. There's a very sad statistic. 3 acres of rural land are lost every minute in the United States. Let's not add to that sad statistic. I encourage you to adhere to the stronger language in the 2018 resolution. As candidates, promises were made to protect our beauty, our environment, and the uniqueness of Marion County, and for the reasons why so many of us love this county and raised our children in it, and hope to see that this county remains as it is for our children and children's children, our grandchildren. Please keep your promises. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Ms. Schneider, and behind Ms. Schneider, we have Sam Havenstein. Ms. Schneider.
Good afternoon. Monica Schneider, 7727 Northwest 14th Street, Ocala, Florida, 34482. I'm asking the board not to adopt the staff's ill-advised revision language for policy 3314 and to retain the original language that was approved for transmittal. Since the adoption of Senate Bill 7068, Marion County is faced with the real threat of a new proposed toll road, which makes it even more essential that we fortify our language and be prepared. I am presenting the following questions for the board to consider before making their final decision for adoption. Why did our administration and legal team not prioritize the DEO letter stating that the department does not identify any objections to the amendment? Importantly, why did the administration not retain the original language and then direct our staff to take the additional steps in providing the data and analysis that were commented on in the DOT letter? Why did the administration only seek advice from a DOT representative rather than search for additional guidance from independent sources? Did our administration and staff take the time to fully comprehend Florida statutes 338.23 and the new 338.2278, which recognizes the importance of local comp plans, therefore should have bolstered your confidence in your original language? Why did our administration and staff decide to remove all of the initial language rather than just tweaking the amendment by possibly crafting a few additional sentences addressing the DOT's concern? Was the county administration aware that the city of Dunellen was proceeding with the adoption of strong and concise language in their comp plan, which will be in conflict? Okay, lastly, has this decision been a well-thought-out process or rather an overreaction, ill-advised, hasty decision? I understand that compromise is sometimes necessary in government, but this is an example of forsaking our values and vision for Marion County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schneider. And I'll also invite Bert Eno forward as well. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Sarah Hallenstein, 29 Wintergreen Way, Ocala. I just moved to my current location about a year ago to the farmland protection area. This was to get away from increased traffic and development over on 80th Avenue. I believe we really need to stand firm on the original transmitted wording to this amendment. With the current threat of yet another proposed toll road, we can't afford to give the state any openings to destroy our precious horse farmland in Marion County. What is the meaning of farmland protection area if we do not do everything in our power to protect it? Please keep the original transmitted language. Thank you.
Thank you. And behind Mr. Eno, we have P.G. Schaefer.
I'm Bert Eno. I live at 9220 Southwest 193rd Circle, Dunellen, Florida. That's up in Rainbow Springs. I can't add anything much to a couple of people that already spoke, Jim Tatum and Whitey Markle, hit the nail on the head as far as what I have to emphasize. I am surprised that the county has backed off on the wording that they had, and I think Charles Lee is very right in that respect. We need the maximum protection we can get from toll roads and splitting up the county accordingly. What's being proposed here by Senator Galvano is that, in fact, we extend the Florida Turnpike to join up with an extension northward of the Suncoast Parkway. And guess what? Where's that going to go? Where are they both going to go? Seems to me that they're going to go right through the Springs Protection Area or the Rainbow Springs Basin. And we don't need that kind of pollution to be created. There was some discussion here earlier about the fact that we have a high nitrate problem in our water, and we can see that in the Rainbow River. The Rainbow River right now has 7 times the level of nitrates that are admissible under the TMDL. And we, as president of the Rainbow River Conservation, our organization is fighting the fact that we have such high nitrates, and furthermore fighting the fact that the flows are being reduced in the Rainbow River to the dangerous extent, and algae is the result of that. We spent last week in Brooksville 3 days, 3 nights, battling with the Water Management District over a very inadequate minimum flow rule that they have promulgated, and I hope we win that. But please, we've got a water problem. We don't need toll roads screwing it up some more.
Thank you, Mr. Reno. And behind Ms. Schaefer, we have Michael J. Sachs.
Madam Chairman, Commissioners, my name is P.G. Schaefer, and my address is 2015 Southwest 43rd Place, Ocala 34471. Thank you for this opportunity. In 2018, during an election cycle, a re-election process for 2 of you, you passed a resolution with strong language protecting our farmland preservation areas and against toll roads. You made promises to protect this county. The DEO did not have objections, just comment. You do not have to change this language. As Bridget stated, you have the statutory right and ability to protect the county through the comp plan. It's Florida Statute 338.223. If you change the language, you are weakening the comp plan, putting our beautiful farmland, the ag and equine industry, and the environment at risk. You are potentially radically changing this beautiful county. I don't live on a farm. I don't own horses, but I have many who I care about who do. I love this county, and I'm asking you to leave the comp plan with the strong original language that you passed in June of 2018 that you promised when 2 of you were running for re-election, and 2 more are running for re-election now, and 2 others for other offices. I cannot support anyone who votes to change this language from the strong language that you originally passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. And behind Mr. Sachs, we'll have Jill Harris.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Michael J. Sachs. I moved from New York in 2005 to raise my family in beautiful Marion County. This is the horse capital of the world. As it was stated, if you look at that beautiful plaque above your heads, it's horses and rolling hills. It's not toll roads. Marion County is absolutely beautiful with the rolling hills. It's stunning and unique and priceless with its farmland and ageless springs. In fact, this is the reason we have a comp plan that protects our homeland. It's the reason we have protections placed upon these lands. People come from other cities and other states and other countries to see the wonders of our county. Heck, they even come from other areas all over the state of Florida because we have these treasures here, treasures that are fragile. I constantly hear that we have to figure out the way to save the future of Marion County. Generations old and new demand that we find ways to protect our aquifer. They demand that we save our farmland, and that we must never turn our roadways into areas like the roadways of Orlando or Fort Lauderdale, or God forbid, New York. New York will return us to an area of toll roads, an area of strict construction areas, and ridiculous population growth that can't be controlled, and we can't turn back to the area that we have here. Not long ago, we were under the attack of the coastal connector, and many people banded together to denounce the connector going through our county at all, much less the pristine areas that contain the farms and the springs. Our politicians assured us that they would not let this road or any other roads infringe upon these areas, the areas of our beautiful homeland. We have several areas of worry about here. The first part is the fact that we will be tearing apart our treasured farmland. We will take away the very part of Marion County that makes it the horse capital of the world, not only carving it up, but polluting it, subjecting it to sprawl, the very same issues that, again, affect populated areas. The other is the area of the pollutants from the roads that will be getting into our aquifer. We just had an amendment discussion about taxes due to the facts of the aquifer being polluted by our septic tanks. If this toll road comes through, we're going to be having more discussions and more tax increases about septic tanks and discussions like that. Thank you very much for your consideration and your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. And behind Ms. Harris, we have Bridget Kopak.
Hi, I'm Jill Harris. I live at 3947 Northwest 95th Avenue Road. And I want to say that this would directly impact me. The Department of Transportation's proposals last year, all 4 of their proposals converged to come past my small farm. And I want to thank you all for the firm stand that you took last year against this coastal connector. And I'm not against finding a road. I'm just asking for it not to be in our pristine horse community. I'm asking you to take that stand again. If you do a quick Google search of horse capital of the world, you'll find horse capital of the world. Ocala, Marion County is the home to the largest number of horses and ponies, more than any other county in the United States. We're known for our horses. I too moved here from South Florida, the Fort Lauderdale area, with my husband and his family because we wanted the horse area. I lived here for 10 years. It was 30 years ago before we were finally able to build and move to our own small farm. The new language that I'm agreeing with the other people who are said is too weak, as it says the farmland preservation area shall be developed in such a way to avoid negative impacts to vital farmlands, key environmental areas, and valuable open space. Who is going to interpret what's vital farmlands? My farm that I've built for the last 20 years is vital. In terms of conservation areas, I've got bald eagles and osprey building nests all around us. And you know, there's just other places to build a toll road or a highway or to move people. I've been through the county, and not every area is like our beautiful horse area. I live in the area where that used to be Happy Valley Farm, where there have been Derby winners, Triple Crown winners have trained there, have been born across the street from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Harris. And behind Ms. Kopak, we have Lori Azu. Yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Bridget Tono Kopak, and I live at 10873 Southwest 89th Avenue in Ocala. And to start out with, I will say that I was born and raised on Long Island. I watched it go from farmlands to over-congestion. And I moved down to Florida 20 years ago. And when I moved to Ocala, I knew I was staying here. It's beautiful. So all I have to say is I would like the language reflected from the resolution that you all originally signed to include that the county finds that any new expressways within farmland preservation area would negatively impact the vital farmlands that we have. That's it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Joyner Kopak. And with Ms. Azu not stepping forward, I'll ask for Kate Gallagher, and then I'll go back and see if Tim Holcamp is with us. Ken Osley. Yes.
Kate Gallagher, 1434 Baden-Powell Road, Melrose, Hawthorne, somewhere in there. So I'm your neighbor up in Putnam County. We share a lot. We share the Ocklawaha River that if you go on it and look at Silver Springs and the Ocklawaha is getting much greener than it needs to be. We also share the St. Johns River, which currently we're being told because of the cyanobacteria, don't swim in it, don't eat what comes out of it, and don't drink it. Our friends down in South Florida have not understood the limits of growth, sustainable growth, and have been bringing us sewage into our St. John's watershed, making it unlivable. It's dying. The St. John's is dying. Thank you so much for being stewards. It befuddles me that we're talking about roads in the 21st century. Why, with climate change, would we be wanting to increase oil and gas? We need to think of mass transit. Roads are not something that will help us at all. There's so many mass transit options in the world, and Florida is so far behind, and we're ruining this beautiful state that I love. I'm a fifth-generation Floridian. Thank you for your stewardship. Please strongly oppose roads. Please strongly support creative mass transit options. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gallagher. Hi.
Hi, I'm Tim Holtkamp. I live at 6221 Northwest 90th Avenue, and I agree that what's been said pretty much covers things. I'd just like to speak to one little aspect about the horse industry here, and that is exceptionalism. I think Marion County can easily point to sustained, lasting exceptionalism that draws people to this community and will be damaged by turnpikes through the farmland area in the southwest fourth of Marion County. I'm a small timer. I'm a horse breeder by hobby originally, but now in retirement full time. Even so, my stallion won the bronze medal at the Athens Olympics. One of his sons that we bred was just picked today to represent the United States at the Pan American Games. We're continuing to do this. We are part of a community of people who are committed to doing the best we can, not just for Marion County, but the United States of America. And we're asking for your political support to preserve what it is we're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Holtkamp. And I'll ask Reggie while you're up. You know you're next. Perfect timing.
Good afternoon, Reggie Boutier, 106 East College Avenue on behalf of On Top of the World Communities. Dear Commissioners, we've been involved, as you know, through the whole process. Our focus today is pretty much on one word, one or two words, in policy 3.3.1.4. And On Top of the World is consistently taking the position that we do not want to see 100% prohibitions in language. And while we'd prefer to have more of a balancing of public interest, and this doesn't still get us there, we can resolve our objections, which I just want to make sure for the record carry forward, because we've submitted those already to your staff and the county attorney. But we have proposed to substitute the word avoid with minimize. And I'll just since I got here today, I understand there are other alternatives that are being looked at, and I think it was alternative D says minimize and mitigate. We would also be supportive of that language as well, and would, withdraw our objections if we could arrive at non-100% prohibition in terms of the language. I want to note that a lot of comments have been made about toll roads, but 338, statute 338.227.8 was just adopted. This statute didn't exist when you began this ear-based process. And the Northern Turnpike connector that proposes to go northwest and connect to the Suncoast Parkway is coming through here. And to have 100% prohibition and not have a seat at the table, I think would be in the bad interest of the county. And the statute itself sets up a task force, and I've got copies that I've made for you with highlights. And on the task force, they're designed, and that's going to be created soon, to weigh and balance all these. And there's language in there that provides for minimization and mitigation as well, and I'm out of time.
Thank you very
You're on
much.
the task force, right?
Yes. No, actual.
Something with your picture on it. I said I saw something with your picture on it. Are you on the task force there?
He gave some detail on it. The task force is yet to be determined. We do have a request for 2 of us that have possibilities in our area to be a part of those task force, but again, they've not been determined at this point. Commissioner Bryant, did you have something?
No.
Okay. Do we have?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, Mr. Boutier?
I'm sorry, I thought.
I do have one thing.
Okay.
What was the statute that you referenced again?
I just handed it out.
Yeah, it's right
This
here.
one?
And we have various, we've highlighted various sections which really focus in on the intent, the purpose, the establishment of the task force, the actual geographical area where the corridor is described. We've done mapping on it, which I think that's what you're referring to. I had my GIS director paint some pictures. But ultimately, if you start to analyze trying to minimize and avoid environmental type of impacts, when you start looking at the placement of that corridor, I mean, this task force is not going to be looking just at one county. It's going to be looking at the entire corridor and trying to minimize and avoid environmental impacts, not just one county. So that's going to affect where it's placed. And if you look at the statute, this is all being designed to be constructed by 2030, so it's pretty aggressive. And I'm just saying, if the county is going to take a stance of 100 prohibition, which the word avoid does mean, then you're basically removing yourself from the table of being able to have a discussion and debate about where it should be placed. Thank you.
We didn't do that, though.
I'm sorry?
Well, we have not-
Language, we did not say not through the whole county. We talked about the farmland preservation area, environment, and environmental sensitive areas within that area. We didn't talk about the entire county. So to say that we are saying absolutely not anywhere, that's not what we said at all.
He's talking about the word avoid right now being interpreted as.
That's only in the farmland preservation.
That's in the farmland
If
preservation
you look at the
area.
layout
That's-
geographically on a map of the farmland preservation area, you don't leave many other alternatives to run any roads through. So, I mean, it effectively narrows the options, which is what everybody here is asking for, I understand, but that's not what, I mean, just looking at this legislation, just this one piece, that's not what's gonna happen, so.
Thank you for your comments, and thank you for the research that you've provided for us as well.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? If so, I'll invite you to come forward now. We have 2 podiums, so everybody's welcome to come. When you get here, just please give your name and address, and then the set of lights
Am I
will
up?
come on. Yes.
I'm Bill White, 12115 Palmetto Way, Dunellen, Florida. I'd like to divulge to you that I am a city councilman for the city of Dunellen, but I am not speaking on behalf of the city. Mayor Burns has done that through his letter. I'm speaking to you as a resident. Tonight, the Planning Commission is going to deal with our language on the comprehensive plan. Tomorrow at a city council meeting, we will take a look at it and possibly act on it. So we're right behind you on this. Dunellen is a city of about 2,000 people, and if you look at the map close enough, you can find it. It's actually in Marion County. It's about 20 miles from here. And it's a city that has been well advertised with its financial problems. It was a city that very recently almost filed for bankruptcy. Kind of turned itself around, but we're still living from paycheck to paycheck, and we count on grants and whatever to do projects. So our financial situation is tenuous. All of our economy right now, not all of it, but a big part of our economy is based on ecotourism. We've just completed a study that has identified as ecotourism as one of our engines for our future to get us out of the situation we're in. You have to ask yourself, what is Dunellen without the Rainbow River and the Withlacoochee River? What is it? Any toll road that goes in that area that comes close to messing up those rivers and damages our ecotourism keeps Dunellen in the financial plight it is in. So I'm asking you to be a friend of the environment, be a friend of Dunellen, and be a friend of Marion County. Do the right thing, step up, and protect what needs to be protected.
Thank you very much, Councilman White.
Hi there. Do I need to state my address?
Yes, your
Katrina
name.
Shaddix, 1421 Brigham Loop, Geneva, Florida. I'm a second-generation Floridian, and I am also the director of Bear Warriors United, and I am here. The Bears asked me to come and speak for them today since they don't have opposable thumbs to fill out the forms there. So, obviously, as a wildlife advocate, and I'm sure many people here in this room have huge concerns about what's going to happen to the wildlife if these highways go through their habitat. And we are hoping that you just stick with the original transmitted language. And I'm asking to do me a favor and hope that you can learn from my county, Seminole County's lesson that we learned. We let developers take over, and there's huge public outcry and uproar about what our commissioners have allowed to happen to our natural lands. Marion County still has the chance to preserve what you have. It's beautiful here. These people here want you to do that. And just stick with your original wording. Think about the bears, think about our environment, our water, and hope that just please stick with your original wording. And I have also contacted my state representative to be on one of those task force. And if you stick with the wording, that is not going to that's not going to disqualify you for being on those task force. So whatever he was threatening, obviously, like you said, is not true. Just think about the bears and everything that is beautiful here in your county and stick with your original wording. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shaddix.
Go ahead, could you pass these down? I'm Jimmy Gooding. I'm an attorney at 1531 Southeast 36th Avenue, Ocala. I'm here only on behalf of myself as a concerned citizen. I am not representing Golden Ocala, RLR, WEC, or any of that. It is my client is a proud member of Horse Farms Forever and it supports their position. But I do have concern as a private citizen about one thing, and I want to make sure the county doesn't make a mistake. And that is just to understand, what does the word avoid mean? We don't define it in here, and thus what the courts do, if they get the hand of a clever lawyer, is they look at dictionary definitions. And I've given you all some examples there, and what I'd like to do is perhaps a illustration would do it. I need a shill or a dummy. Any volunteers? No, not you, Mr. Martsoff. The doll fellow behind you in the orange shirt. Would you mind coming up here, sir? What I'm going to do is I go through these definitions is avoid getting David Tillman wet. Now, as you see, I've got a little sprayer here and I've got a bucket full of water here. And we will see what avoids getting David Tillman wet.
Mr. Gooding, don't make me.
The most common definition here is avoid is to prevent something from happening. When you prevent it, you stop it. It is a word of absolution. It is not a word of trying to do something. And I've given you examples in those sentences of things that avoid, and I've given you 3 different dictionary definitions to show that avoid has the absolute definition of preventing. That's the only definition that we can have here, and that's the only definition that it could have. I was not blessed with giving the county attorneys alternatives. I was quickly given the opportunity to look at them during the meeting. I believe that alternatives B, C, and D would work. Would avoid what you got set up here is an invitation for lawyers, and we would like to avoid that. I would like to avoid that as a private citizen, and I think the alternatives that I think the county attorney's prepared, B, C, and D, would be much better. But anyway, thank you, sir.
Don't dump that, please. goodness.
I'll clean it up after the meeting.
And along with your wording of your dissertation of avoid, Mr. Gooding, I think that our community would like to avoid a toll road coming through.
And I know y'all would like to avoid ever hearing from me again.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir, and I believe Mr. Osley is here as well.
A little comic relief doesn't hurt.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, anyway, my name is Jerome Feaster. I live at 22234 Northwest 117th Court in Shiloh. Unlike most of the speakers here today, I'm a lifetime resident of Marion County. Most of these folks have come here because of what we have here. I live on my great-grandfather's farm in the farmland preservation area. I'm here on behalf of Save Our Rural Area and would like to express our concern of any transportation corridors that will be in or near the farmland preservation area. It is our wish that our comp plan be strong and clear about keeping the country country and not adopt any changes to the comp plan previously adopted in 2018. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Feaster. Yes, ma'am. I'm not sure. I'm going to put another appeal out.
No, I'm not going to be least, but be last. And I think the big giant umbrella over the whole county is the best idea. And y'all would be the biggest heroes.
If you could just give your name and address for the record.
Okay. Connie Bryant, 18507 Southwest 31st Street in Dunellen. I agree with what everybody said. We just wanted to add this, that the Bill 768 does state that community representation, that we do get community representation on that task force. And how do we apply to take to that task force as a community representative? I mean, what do we do to?
We don't have any of those details at this moment in time.
So how will we find out?
We have made the request to be on the committee.
So how will do we know how the public can determine? So I would suggest maybe contact your legislators in Tallahassee at this moment in time would be my only recommendation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy Munoz, 495 Marion Oaks Boulevard. You've heard from all these people basically saying, go back to the original language you sent in the resolution. I think that would behoove you guys to put that language in this ordinance and forget what you've written now. And if you want a good word for avoidance, do not infringe would be a good substitute. But go back to the original language and stick to that. Why are you going to change something that's already good? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Munoz. Mr. Tillman.
Hello, David Tillman, 12550 Southeast Sunset Harbor Road, Wearsdale, Florida. If y'all recall, whenever I came up last time and spoke about the language that was in the comp plan, I brought several Florida statutes and some case law. I think it was a Torres case, if I recall correctly. And one of the things in there, the things that were there basically said if we put language in our comp plan that does not give them the ability to work around it or work with it, then it would be ignored. So that's one of my primary concerns with us putting something in here that basically says, you know, that it won't, you know, it can't be done if we're going to avoid it entirely. I agree with Mr. Lee on C. C is the strongest language I think that's written there regarding impacts to the farmland preservation area. It says that they will, you know, that they will have to do everything to find an alternate route, and they also will have to do any they will have to do any type. They would have to buffer it and separate it in any way possible if they do go through those areas. So, I mean, it sounds like the strongest language in there to me. Typically, you know, I'm not up here talking about saving farmland. I'm up here to develop most of the time. But in this case, our farmland is important. That language, I think, gives us the strongest language that allows DOT to still work with us and not ignore our language, but to adopt our language as part of their design. And so that's what I would like to see us adopt today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tillman. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to speak? If so, I invite you to come forward now.
Michelle Shearer, 2301 Southeast 85th Street, President of the Shady Greenway Conservation Alliance. I believe that we wouldn't even be talking about this today if our representative at the I-75 corridor task force had said no, like Alachua County did. But since we are here, I still think that we just need to impress on the state how much it would ruin our county, and that this is part of our emblem, is to have horse land in our county, and why a lot of people come here. I believe probably the wording in the numbers or letter C would probably be the best one if we have to continue with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shearer. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to make a public statement during our public comment time before we close public comment? If you've already spoken, I'm sorry, you cannot come forward again. I'm sorry. But if we have anyone else who has not come forward and made a statement, you're invited to come forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Nancy Reich, and I live at Southwest 88th Terrace in Ocala. I'm really disappointed that we have to be here again after a year. My biggest concern is for the friends that I don't have a farm, I don't have horses, I have friends, and I've made friends over this past year who are living under constant threat and constant stress of not knowing what's going to happen to them or to their homes. And it seems to me that this is almost a legacy thing for you as our county commission, and approving toll roads really and allowing this to happen. Is that what you want to be remembered for? I'm sorry, I can't believe, it feels like Groundhog Day to me. Here we are still. Please keep the original language in that plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rake. Is there anyone else in the audience? If so, I invite you, and if there's anyone behind this gentleman, please come forward.
Hello, my name is Andy Seiler. I live at 6683 Northeast Jacksonville Road. I was torn about getting up here today because I'm actually a fifth-generation Floridian, and my family's seen a lot of changes that have happened here in Marion County over the last 100 years. My great-grandfather could have bought in some of the land on top of the world for $50 an acre way back when. Now, obviously, if we would have done that, I would be sitting with them, not by myself. But to be completely honest, the thing that I want all of us to remember is if we're going to give something up, what are we going to get in return? And if we're going to give up our land, the money, the extra people that we get to move to this county, I mean, when we give those things up, then we change who we are today. And that's something that's concerning to me as a father of 2 children that would love to see a 6th and 7th generation live in this county and raise those children in a county that I grew up in. I understand that we're going to have growth because Florida is a great place to live, and I love living here, and it's a great place to raise a family. But I also want to make sure that tomorrow it's still a great place to raise a family. So thank you for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Seiler. Ms. Barrow.
Okay, Janet Barrow, P.O. Box 370, Dunellen. What Mr. Seiler just said, what will we get in return if we get another toll road, another highway like that through here? We've already got I-75, and it divides the county. So what we're going to end up is another, fragmenting the county and all the problems that go along with it. We already have a lot of industrial centers, and there are intermodal centers popping up all over Florida, And remember, this is a multimodal corridor. It's not just a highway or a toll road. So there's a lot that goes along with it. And Mr. Marwick made the comment about Chinese investing in our toll roads. Well, I have followed some of these multimodal aspects of this corridor, and foreign companies have already invested in Florida's infrastructure. And I'm not going to go into detail about it, but it's already happening. And anyway, do what you can to protect Marion County. I'm looking for a place that will protect itself, whether that is Marion County or a few other places I'm looking at. I drove up to Shiloh with my husband just over the weekend. We had a nice drive, and I was in awe of certain things. I love that drive, but I mean, I feel like what's going to happen to Marion County, it's, you know, I've said before, I feel like ag's getting pushed out of here, and that's, do what you can, please.
Thank you, Ms. Sparrow. Mr. Osley.
Hey, Ken Osley, 5100 Southwest 7th Avenue Road. I just wanted to say I understand the sentiments of everyone who's coming up to talk. I mean, all of us, like Mr. Seiler, I actually am 6th generation and my kids are 7th generation Marion County, so I care deeply about this place. Still live on a mini farm myself. I think one of my big concerns, and it's a concern of everyone, is that a state facility can trump what we do around here. And we just want to ensure that if the state is going to do something, that we have a seat at the table to make sure we can mitigate any negative impacts and make sure that if anything happens, it happens in a way that's best for Marion County instead of sitting back and having things happen to us, which is my fear in this process. I mean, they have some responsibility to work with us, but ultimately it's in their court to do what they're going to do with the state facility. So I agree with Mr. Tillman. I think the language in C is probably our best bet, but I at least wanted to share those concerns that I know everyone has, and hopefully we will get a seat at that table and be able to help them make decisions that are good for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Osley. Do we have anyone else in the audience who would like to speak during public comment? If not, we're going to take about a 10-minute recess. We'll be back.
always say that when you're in trial, you can only win by cross-examination because your own witnesses will kill you every time.
That was the way they did. Yeah, we're in good shape.
Well, we took a little bit longer, but I think it was necessary and needed. And I hope many of you have received a copy of some of the verbiage that's been referenced in some of the comments. I'm going to start us off with just a message that I want to make sure that I share. And that is to first thank everyone who's taken time off work, made arrangements to be with us in person, or either you're listening to this meeting online. Citizen engagement with government is truly appreciated. And just because the outcome is not going to please everyone here today, I hope that it doesn't mean that we're going to part as enemies. And I do believe that we all have the same goal in mind, and that's to have a beautiful community that takes the opportunity to preserve our character, as well as have good, safe roads for our current citizens and those that travel through Marion County and those that will call Marion County home. I'll remind us all that this board, with every decision that we make as it relates to our comp plan, is to protect our community and our environment to the highest level possible. And what we're doing with the EARS amendment, which is the Evaluation, Appraisal, and Review Amendment to our comp plan, is a legislative policy-making decision. And these decisions usually involve balancing competing choices, which is what we're up against. It is our job, the five of us here, to find that best balance for the entire good of our whole community. And being in the northwest section of Marion County, I have had many, many conversations with my community as it relates to what this may mean, as well as the comp language that has been proposed. And many of them were very, I'm going to say, accepting, recognizing that it is a good balance on behalf of the entire community. I'll also remind us, whenever we didn't even have language in our comp plan, and our community had a public outcry about 5 lines that were drawn on a map, DOT backed off of that. And yes, we did put a strong resolution because we were not going to have any of those 5 lines. None of those 5 lines worked for us. We didn't have a seat at the table when those 5 lines were put on a map. The language that we're looking to adopt today is to make sure that we don't close the door and we have a seat at the table with whatever happens in the future with how those corridors are going to go through the state of Florida. And chances are they may come by, they may skirt Marion County. But if we don't have a seat at the table, we have done a very terrible disservice for all the citizens in Marion County. So again, many of you in this audience may not agree with any choice that we make, but again, I hope we will not part as enemies. And with that, I'm going to bring it back to the board.
Well, we've had some, Madam Chair, we've had some alternate text that our county attorney has actually been working on, and I think most of you out there have a copy of that alternate text. And I know that we've had a couple of people that have referenced alternative C, that revised text. And as I've read, as I read through what we had, as I read through what was proposed, as I've sat and thought about this for many, many, many hours, first of all, it's a shame that we're even here. That, we went through last year, we went through last fall, we thought that we had avoided that, and then some things changed with this legislative session, which has actually made it even more important for us to get our language and our comp plan right to do exactly as what you said, which was to ensure that we have that seat at the table so that we don't end up like we were the last time when the coastal connector was proposed. As Mr. Seiler stated, as Mr. Osley stated, as Mr. Feaster stated, I can sit here and say I too am from Marion County. I was born, I grew up here. I was born here, of course, and I grew up here, and I've watched all the changes that have happened to our community, and it is vitally important, and I think it's vitally important to everybody sitting in this room that we make sure that while we have to accommodate the growth, and I've said this 1,000 times, I feel like, we have to accommodate that growth, we cannot lose what makes us who we are. And so I think ensuring that we are involved in any conversations that are going to change or potentially change the face of our community is extremely important. I know that I don't want to watch any more degradation of our springs. I don't want to lose any more of our rural areas. We have plenty of space outside of those rural areas to do what we need to do. I am probably in favor of, if I have to be in favor of any of this, I'm going to be in favor of alternative C over any other alternative. And I did read, you know, I've done a ton of reading with our statutes, unfortunately with this Senate bill. But I think that if we want to ensure that we're going to have a seat at the table, this is probably the best revision of the language that I've seen.
Commissioner Zalek.
So I appreciate that, Commissioner, you know, and I think some of the information that we've gotten over the last, you know, ever since the Coastal Connector thing came up on the radar last year has got convoluted, right? The reason why we passed such a strong resolution last year was the fact that there was a specific project, specific lines on a map, specific areas that were going to be, you know, quite frankly, destroyed and farms put under. And I mean, it would have absolutely been a terrible thing. And this board came out in strong support. The reason we're here today, though, is because in our planning documents, we need to continue to strengthen them for our future and what our farmlands are going to look like. And after that resolution, our board got together and you know, even during that time and said, hey, we need long-term plans to continue to protect our farmlands as well. Make sure that we do have that seat at the table. So these are two different categories. The language is probably not appropriate to have the same language you have in a resolution for a specific project as it is for a long-term planning document. And I think that's where folks are getting a little confused, and or to say at any point that this board has shown anything but the resoluteness and will to make sure that our community is protected is crazy. I'm sorry that the process is long. It is long. It is government. It is made to be that way. It does take time to change these things. But we have stood by our farmland preservation area, and we want to continue to see the farms in Marion County be something that aren't just okay, but they continue to be fantastic and great in producing the Olympians and the world's best, right? I think that's what we want, and that's why we continue to use the phrase horse capital of the world. And so we darn better make sure that we have some horses to call ourselves that, right? So I, along with Commissioner Bryant, am in favor of either C or going back to our original language that we sent. I do not like the modified language presented today.
So Commissioner Moore.
Well, I'd like to just start off with Ira Stern's quote, because I think I-4 down in Orlando is a classic example of that. Ira Stern, you're right. You cannot build your way or yourself out of congestion, which is correct. And that's what this board is definitely, we all stand in agreement that we want to preserve the farmland preservation. We want to protect Marion County, because before we were the horse capital of the world, we were the cattle capital of the world. When the Spaniards brought over cattle, it was Paynes Prairie in northwestern Marion County is where that cattle is. And still, if you go out in Paynes Prairie, you can see some of that cattle out there today. You know, and they call it cracker cattle, and they're still out there. But we need to protect it, and I would agree with Commissioner Zalek, either the original language or language C are the two that I think are the strongest wording. It gives, Tallahassee the thing, stay out of our farmland, stay out of our environmentally sensitive areas. And then also with C, it does give us a seat at the table. So, but I would go with what we originally transmitted or with C, but the rest of it I can't support. But I will, those two, because it does protect our farmland.
Thank you, Commissioner Moore. Anybody else? So at this point in time, I will share with you that it is my desire that we look at C.
Okay.
So I need a motion.
Well, I actually think that C spells it out.
Really good.
It's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. A little bit.
It's very detailed.
It's very detailed, and I think A could be a little vague, so I can support that. So I'll make a motion to approve our comp plan. Let me get back there, sorry. Just, there it is, right here. I got it right here. All right, so I will make a motion to approve the ordinance to adopt the 2018 Marion County Comprehensive Plan Evaluation and Appraisal Report based large-scale amendments with the alternative language of C to go in to be added to our report. So it would say new transportation corridors intended to be used specifically for the construction of expressways or limited access roadways shall avoid the farmland preservation area unless the Department of Transportation can demonstrate that there are no feasible corridor alignments outside of the farmland protection area, in which case the department shall design and develop such roadway in such a way as to minimize and mitigate negative impacts to vital farmlands, key environmental areas, and valuable open. The first part that we did not change.
The rest of the language.
So the language, roadway design within the rural areas shall be consistent with the principles of context-sensitive design, which considers the relationship of land uses and all aspects of roadway design, including speed, travel lane width, access management, and landscaping. And then the language that I read previously will be added to that.
So we've got a motion by Commissioner Bryant,
I'll second it.
second by Commissioner Zalek. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. And again, thank you for all the citizen input. And we
Move the
will
ordinance.
next move.
Second.
Thank you. We've got a motion by Commissioner Zalek to approve and adopt the ordinance. Motion second by Commissioner Moore. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.